Hey guys, welcome again to our live training. We do these every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We've actually been working through a series on why the winter slowdown shouldn't be, or why it doesn't exist actually. In fact, if you buy into my theory, I actually think that now's the best time to get busy starting with your leads. And it's also a great time to kind of reflect on what you're doing and to plan ahead for the next year. As we enter into December tomorrow, we want to have a plan of action for what we're going to do next year. And last week we talked a little bit about taking a look back at what we did as far as advertising and lead generation. And we used our advertising evaluation calculator. And this week we're going to talk business planning. Specifically, I'm going to show you a very quick and easy way that you can put some goals on paper, you can acknowledge your market realities, and then we can create kind of an executable plan for the next year. So if you want, I put a link in the description here for recalculators.com. Go ahead and click on that and proceed to the calculators. So I'm going to actually walk you through using our business planning calculator. And once you're there, it'll ask you to register. Once you've registered and you're in, one of those calculators is going to be called our business planning calculator. It's really, really simple to use. All it's going to take is for you to sit down and actually put some numbers on paper. So as we saw last week, I can't show you what the site, can't actually show it. But like I said, I have it up on my iPad here, and it's backwards, of course, with this forward-facing camera. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some real basic facts, what I'd like to do next year, and then what my market is like, what my situation is like, and then we're going to kind of come up with a plan of action. So the first number it's going to ask me is how much money do I want to make in the next 12 months? And so for the sake of this experiment or this example, I'm just going to put $100,000. That seems like a nice round figure that could sustain someone pretty much any market across the country. So $100,000. Then I'm going to put in the average sale price in my market. So in my particular market, Fayetteville, North Carolina, the average sale price is actually $150,000, which is actually significantly below the national average. Some of you are sitting there laughing because you're at 500,000 plus for your average sale price, but the national average hovers a little bit over 230. I'm just going to put 250,000 as for this particular example. Then the next question it asks is, what is the average commission side? So in most markets, this is going to be like 2.5%, 3%. In my market, it's 3%, so I'm just going to put 3% in there. And then it's going to ask me, what is my split? So you may have to do a little bit of figuring here on your own because a lot of people aren't on, hey, I'm just on an 80-20 split. Sometimes there's different tiers. Some people will tell me, hey, I'm on a 95% split, but I pay $1,000 a month. It's actually pretty easy to figure out, what your actual percentage is based if you have some of those per transaction fees or per month fees. If it's a per transaction fee, it's super simple. You figure out, hey, if it's 3% on a $250,000 property, that means I get X amount I get $7,500. And if I pay a $500 transaction fee, for example, you can do the math on that. That's an additional, I'm struggling doing the math right now, but whatever it is, you add that onto your split, obviously. So you get the idea. You want to come up with an actual split, so you don't want to ignore if you pay an office fee or a per transaction fee. That's not nothing. That's part of your split. And then you just put that number in there. So for this example, I'm just going to put 80 in there. That tends to be a pretty round number, and if you have good production, that's probably pretty normal for a lot of brokerages. Once you reach, your minimum tiers and whatnot. Then it's going to ask how much of my business is buyer side business. And the reason why it's asking this is because if I want to go after a lot of seller side business, I'm going to have to generate a lot more total number of leads. to be able to do this. So I'm just going to go with a 50-50 split. I know some of you are just wanting to do sellers. That's fine. So you would just put 0% buyers if that's what you want to do, or maybe a smaller percentage than 50-50. Then it has some assumptions that are already going to be filled out for you. And I typically tell agents, unless you just know your numbers here, these are based on the national averages, so they'll at least get you in the ballpark of what we're going to be doing in terms of a plan. So the first question it asks is the total number of leads it takes to close a deal. Now, if your number is way off from this, if you have the sense that my number is not 1 in 24, which is the national average according to the National Association of Realtors, then what you can do is you can take a look back over the last year, hopefully, if you've been keeping records, how many leads did you generate? And maybe the number is, I generated 3,000 leads. How many deals did you close? Maybe you did 50. And so you can figure out what the number is from there in terms of, how many deals or how many leads it takes to do a deal. You put that actual number in there. How many hours do you work in a week? And so in this case, it's you basically put your number of hours worked, and then it's going to ask you what an efficiency percentage is. And what this is asking is your time. How efficient with your time are you? Do you work continuously throughout an hour, or do you work for 45 minutes and then take a break and go get coffee and talk, chit chat with your fellow agents in the office? Now, the reality is no one is 100% efficient with their time. So be honest with yourself and put a number. The number that it actually puts in there is probably a pretty conservative estimate for most of you, and it's going to be 75%. Like I said, unless you just happen to know your numbers here, you can always just leave these. And then you're going to hit the calculate button, and it's going to spit out a plan of action. Now, this is really important because it's one thing to just say, hey, I'd like to make $100,000 next year. It's a totally different thing to say, I'd like to make $100,000 next year, and this is what it's going to take to get there. So based on all the numbers that I just put in, here's what it spit out. I'm going to need to do 19 closed transactions. Okay, that's pretty doable. That's less than 2 a month. I'm going to need to have 13 buyer contracts and 10 closings. So I'm going to need to ultimately submit 13 contracts to get 10 closings. Again, those numbers are based on the national averages. I'm going to need to take 18 listings and ultimately close 9 sales. Again, that 50% is based on the national averages. And here's the kicker, and here's where I think it's super important. It actually tells me how many leads I need to generate. And in this case, it tells me over the next year I need to generate 744 leads. Now, some of you are sitting there thinking, 700 leads? How in the world do I can't even fathom that. And so one of the things I like to do is, hey, let's break it down into a monthly goal. So rather than think of this far off, I need 744 leads, if I think on a monthly basis, I need to generate 62 leads, which is if you divide 744 divided by 12, you get 62. So I need to generate 62 leads a month. And that gives me an actionable number. So if I need to generate 62 leads a month, I need to make sure that my various advertising arms that are out there, whether it's open houses or farming or sphere of influence or online lead generation, whatever it may be, I need to make sure that they add up to 62 leads each and every month if I want to achieve that goal. So my suggestion is, if you don't have after you put these numbers in, it tells you how many leads you need, and you're looking at that lead number and you don't have a plan for how to generate that many leads, my suggestion would be, we have some resources within this group on how to run online ads, for example. That tends to be the easiest, fastest way that anybody can get up and running. And because we've already talked about it, remember, particularly online leads are going to be 3 to 6 months out from closing. So this isn't something you want to wait till January to start doing. This is something that you want to start with right now. You want to say, okay, I need 40 leads a month. I don't want to wait till 2018. I want to start generating my 40 leads a month now as quickly as possible, so that by the time February, March runs around, I have some closed deals in the pipeline. One of the other things it helps out with is just sort of allocating your time. So this calculator, in addition to giving you the leads you need, the closings you need, it's also going to give you what your work week should look like. So it's going to tell you, how many hours of prospecting calls and things like that. And it really, hopefully, will give you kind of a plan, an idea of what you want to be doing on a daily basis for the next year. Now, it's going to be very basic, generalized. Feel free to contact us or comment below if you have questions, if you want to get a little bit deeper into what you should be doing. If you're looking at that number, again, the total number of leads needed, and you're going, I have no idea how I would get that number of leads, but I do want to make that amount of money, then it's time to start taking a look at some advertising that maybe you haven't ever done before. And like I said, I'm personally biased to online leads. I think there's no more effective, efficient, cheap way to get leads than through online methods. But the reality is, no matter what method you choose, that is the plan. That is how you're going to achieve your goals in the next year, is if you basically start right now coming up with the actions. What are you going to do? It's not enough to just put the number out there and say, oh, I want to make $100,000 next year. You have to say, I want to make $100,000, and these are the steps that I'm going to take to do it. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Like I said, there's a link down below, recalculators.com. Feel free to join us on these. I notice we get some viewers through these through these live trainings. If you have questions, feel free to interact. I will be able to see the questions when you post them. I'm more than happy to answer them as we go through this stuff. And hopefully, like I said, if you have questions, feel free to comment below. You guys have a great day.